What's shaking, bacons? Whew. This one's a beast. Here we go. Let's talk about Avengers Infinity War. So right off the bat, I'm going to say, because this is a beast of a film, I'm going to be splitting this review into two parts. So this part is going to be non-spoilers, and I will have a separate part where I talk about spoilers and sort of in-depth thoughts about the movie. But this one will be non-spoilers. I will not spoil anything for you, so if you are worried about it, don't be. Avengers Infinity War is directed by the Russos, and it was written by Stephen McFeely and Christopher Marcus. And at the end of the film, when I found out who had written it, I was like, well, that's appropriate, because this movie gave me lots of McFeelys. Avengers Infinity War stars, well, everyone? Basically everyone. I think the only people that it doesn't have, or the only heroes that it didn't have, were Ant-Man and Hawkeye. There were even a few cameos that were thrown in from prior Marvel Cinematic Universe movies that shocked me in a good way when I saw them, because I was like, that's clever. So Infinity War is the culmination of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe that we have experienced so far, both the films and the TV series. It is going to be quite the opus. All of the threads from the majority of the heroes that we have been following for years and years at this point are starting to tie together in this movie, in this one huge overarching plot line with Thanos and his quest to obtain all of the Infinity Stones. And honestly, I think that's really all I have to say about the plot to this movie. If you don't know any more about the movie than that, even simply based on seeing the trailer, I have to say, I think you've probably been living in a cave for the last year or longer. First of all, for those who are worried, I am happy to report that the trailer does not spoil the film at all. A lot of trailers these days 100% show the best parts of the movie. They spoil major plot points. Thank God Infinity Wars does not do this. The trailer shows intense moments that happen in the film, but definitely does not spoil anything, and the mystery is left mysterious. So that is great for starters. The full story itself in this movie is pretty intense, and as you can imagine, since this is such a huge story to tell, the ending does leave you hanging, although it isn't the kind of BS cliffhanger that you encounter sometimes in movies or in books or in comics, where you finish it and you just want to punch the author in the face because they've just left you at such a drop-off, and you're like, seriously, are you kidding me? That's it? With that said though, the cliffhanger is very jarring when it occurs, so you are left kind of like, oh no, it ended here? Shoot. And of course, there is the quintessential Marvel post-credits scene that you do not want to miss because it helps set up the next movie. And there's a hint about a new character that will be joining the movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is interesting to see. The wonderful thing about the story for Avengers Infinity War is that this film, despite having such a large plot and a large amount of subplots that it has to cover with all of the characters, does a very good job at carrying on the trend that I feel was started with Black Panther at ensuring that it devotes proper time to story and character development. This is not just for the heroic characters either, which is good, and you still get to see facets of the heroes in this movie that you didn't really see in prior movies or in prior representations of them, which is really nice. Even small bits and pieces, you get to see different parts of their personalities and how they have evolved as characters as time has passed since Captain America Civil War, which is very cool to see. And they did a good job of highlighting characters that haven't really had a chance yet to shine in this world, such as the Scarlet Witch, while also giving us those extra glimpses of characters with whom we are already quite familiar. Like, you get to see a little bit more of Captain America, you see a little bit more to Tony, you see a little bit more to Bruce Banner, to Peter Parker, to the Black Widow. There's just a very good, even if slightly demonstrated, rounding to the characters that they have made sure that they have continued in this movie. It helps you to reconnect with all of them, and it helps you to reinvest emotionally in who they are and remember why you loved them in the movies as time has led up to Infinity War. But like I said, it's not just character development for the heroes, but also for our villains. And our main villain, which is even more rare for a movie to do. And that is very exciting because you're not just getting a stereotypical movie villain where they're like, here he is, hate him. You actually get a villain with a backstory. You get to see the motivations of the villain. You get to understand where he's coming from. You get to kind of see inside of his head. And that glimpse inside his head really helps give the film depth, and it adds believability and nuance to this character, and it helps you understand the villain more, and you understand why he is such a villain. And that is a nuance that is often just inherently lacking in a lot of movies. I think a really good comparison would be how Snoke was handled in The Last Jedi. Snoke was a similar villain in which he was supposed to be this grand villain, very powerful, very intimidating, and yet with that character and that telling, there was absolutely no development. You didn't understand who the person was. You didn't get a chance to understand the motivations. You didn't get a chance to understand how they connected with the other main characters in this story and in this universe. Unlike in Infinity War, where you do get that opportunity, they did an amazing job of handling that with Thanos. And it wasn't just the characters and the writing by itself that was excellent in this movie, but I also felt that the pacing was very well done. With as large of an endeavor as this film is, it could have felt very, very chopped. It could have felt rushed. It could have felt like it was all over the place. It could have felt very fragmented, and it did not. And while it is definitely a long movie, like, it's not as long as Lord of the Rings, but it's getting close, it passed in a flash. Very similar to Black Panther, where you just get so invested in what's happening that you forget how much time has passed. When the end came, I fully thought there was another hour left in the movie, and I was very shocked. I was like, oh my God, that was the ending. And because of that, the story flowed very well. Areas where there could have probably been a plot hole or an inconsistency that happened were smoothed over and actually were handled in a way that I was impressed with, because they were handled in very small ways, but they're things that I caught and I was impressed because I was like, they actually addressed this, because I could see myself watching the movie and going, well, that didn't make any sense. How did they get from A to B? How did anybody know that C was occurring? How did anybody know that F was a problem? And they actually had very small things peppered in, almost sometimes as reminders that helped you understand what answers were needed to take care of those questions. There are some very, very strong, genuine moments of emotion in these movies. This is not just a shoot 'em up explosions type of film where it's just non-stop action. You get genuine emotion, and I'm not gonna lie, there was moments throughout the movie where I was kind of sniffling because I felt for the characters and what was going on with them. And then there's an end scene. I was openly crying. It took me, I had to dry myself off. I was like, the humor in this film was also on point. I was kind of worried that because Avengers has sort of started the style of humor that has been a trend for films in 2017 and 2018, that it would be almost overboard and over the top, trying to prove that they were the original, and they didn't. They knew when to dial it up and they knew when to tone it back down, and I thought that it was done very well, and there were a lot of funny moments, but it was in appropriate places of the story. There was no out of place humor. The reason why that kind of humor particularly works for the Avengers is because that has historically been part of the franchise. The Marvel Universe has always been great at incorporating a little bit of tongue-in-cheek to their films, and I think that they did a good job of incorporating the tongue-in-cheek while not going overboard with it and keeping it from being egregious. The only true issue that I had with the story by itself and with the movie is that they're trying to do so much with all of the characters that when they do rejoin one of the subplots, at this point there are so many that they join them and you're like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot that that was a major thing that's happening, because you're trying to keep track of everything that's going on at the same time. And that is probably my only real criticism with the story itself. There's so much that they're trying to do that you as a viewer, having not been intimately involved with the production and with the writing and with the directing of the film, have difficulty keeping track of every single thing that's happening. But that is probably going to be much easier after seeing it at least twice. And I think with any hero movie, you are going to get a little bit of predictability, but there's not a whole lot. And the acting, I thought, was wonderful for everyone involved. The only character that I had issues with the acting was, ironically, Josh Brolin as Thanos. Part of this had to do with the CGI, I feel, because Thanos' character is such a ginormous, like, purple meathead that it's hard for them to really, I guess, manipulate his CGI muscles to show the emotion that I think he's supposed to have in different scenes. But if that's the case, I would then presume that the voice acting side should really step it up. And I just don't think that Josh Brolin stepped it up to the level that it needed to be. Don't get me wrong, he did a good job, but was he great? No. Was Thanos still incredibly intimidating and well-rounded and a true villainous character? Yes. But was it at the level that it could have been? No. And last but definitely not least, the music was truly complementary to the film. And it was to the story. It stayed true to the themes of each character and to the themes of each movie in some ways. For example, when the Guardians enter, you kind of hear the more nostalgic Guardian flavor into the music. And there's a couple pop culture references that they kind of mock how self-referential the nostalgia factor has become, even in the Marvel films. And that also plays through in the music, but it's handled very well. I think they did an excellent job with the score in general. To sum things up, I think my final rating for the Avengers Infinity War is actually a 93%. Pretty darn good. If I was being completely honest though, if it were even vaguely possible to avoid spoilers for this film until the next one came out, I would almost say that personally, I wish I hadn't seen it. That's not because it wasn't a great movie, because it is. It's because the problem is it is so well done that when you reach the end, you realize, shoot, I have to wait how many years until I get any kind of follow-up to this? Are you kidding me? And that sucks. But as the movie goes overall, I highly recommend it. Before you see it though, I would just say make sure you watch Thor Ragnarok, even if you're not a big Thor fan, because I think if you don't watch Thor Ragnarok, you're going to have difficulty catching and understanding a lot of the things that are happening in this movie, because there are very large tie-ins with Thor Ragnarok, and if you haven't seen it, you're going to be left with a lot of question marks, and you're probably not going to understand as much of the film as you need to fully follow what is happening in the universe and what is happening with the story. And I will say, I definitely think that this is a movie that you need to watch multiple times in order to even attempt to fully catch all of the references and the subtleties in it. It's definitely worth a repeat watch. So guys, have you seen Avengers Infinity War? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Try to keep it mostly non-spoilers, because this is going to be the non-spoilers video. Like I said, I will do a separate spoilers section. 93% was my final score. Let me know what you think. And as always, if you want to help support the channel and what I'm doing, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Even just $1 a month gets you extra freebies and goodies from me that I put on Patreon that you don't get access to anywhere else in any of the social media accounts I have. And if you ever want to hang out live, come check me out on Twitch. I am there Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will catch you later.